What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. This is the channel where we sit down and cover different comic book stories from different comic book companies. Today, we're going to jump back over to Marvel Comics and continue our coverage over Daredevil. Now, right now, we are currently covering Ed Brubaker's run on Daredevil. And this video right here, we are going to begin his phase 2 of his run on Daredevil. And this brings back an old character. Now, I am not going to reveal who this old character is, but this old character does begin the process of attacking the wife of Daredevil, Milla Donovan. This is one of my, favorite stories for Daredevil, because the next one makes it even better. So, if you do like today's comic book video, please hit that like button down below and also subscribe. But guys, here we go. With this story, we open with Malvin Potter, better known as the Gladiator. Now, Malvin Potter is actually an old enemy of Matt Murdock, but then was turned into a good guy, except when he was forced to help Alexander Bont, who was the Kingpin before Wilson Fisk. Malvin Potter was thrown into jail, except since he was being a good inmate, he was supposed to get out on good behavior. Sadly, in the opening pages, we see that apparently Malvin Potter had killed some other inmates, and to Malvin Potter, he is yelling out saying that he did not do it. So the question is then, who killed these other people? We then get to the main character of the book, which of course is Daredevil, and we see him being out in Hell's Kitchen for the first time coming back from Paris, where he is trying to remind Hell's Kitchen that he is back to stay and that he is not going anywhere this time. Except while Daredevil is chasing down some thugs in the car, he talks about how someone out there is making lower level thugs do horrible things, except that you have one group be a distraction so that Daredevil goes after them while another group of thugs do the real crime somewhere else. The reason why Daredevil is saying this is because an old man got killed at the real crime scene. And Daredevil couldn't help that old man because he was dealing with the other crime that was a distraction. So we pick up with Daredevil chasing after the thugs who were hoping that another crime would distract Daredevil long enough so they can get away again. Except of course, it did not work this time, and you have Daredevil come in and begin to chase after these guys. Now of course, these guys don't stand a chance against Daredevil. He is able to take these guys down very easily, except here comes the big problem. The two guys that Daredevil was so close to capturing end up killing themselves, which to Daredevil, he is wondering why in the world would they kill themselves for. Were they scared of Daredevil? So now Daredevil's goal is to figure out what was going on with those thugs killing themselves. In the morning though, we see that Matt Murdock is in bed with his wife, Milla Donovan. We met her back in Brian Michael Bendis' Daredevil's run. Either way, what seemed to be a normal morning, except that is when Matt Murdock gets a call that's about what Malvin Potter did in prison. Malvin Potter is asking Matt Murdock to be his lawyer to prove that he is innocent. Except Matt Murdock says no, and when Milla Donovan asks why won't Matt Murdock help his friend, Matt mentions that they just went through a lot because Matt is Daredevil, so he is trying to lay low, meaning that he can't help someone who has ties to Daredevil. We then pick up with a guy named Gus, who took over the Malvin Potter case by being the lawyer for that case, where he is meeting up with Becky Blake, who is a partner to Matt Murdock and Foggy Nelson. Gus is here asking for Becky help with the case since the law firm she works for, which is Matt Murdock and Foggy Nelson law firm, was the ones that helped Malvin Potter in the past. So Becky says yes, but except when she goes to talk to Matt Murdock and Foggy Nelson about this case, they both say no. At first because, again, they are trying to lay low, and they can't lay low if they take cases that have a past connection to Daredevil. Except at a certain point, you have Matt Murdock realize that Becky is right when it comes to helping friends. So you have Matt Murdock agree with Becky about helping Malvin Potter and figure out if he really did kill someone. And so you have Matt Murdock and Becky Blake go to the prison to meet with Malvin Potter because now they are going to be his lawyers. When they get there, you have them ask the usual question, like what had happened. Malvin explains that when he went back to work on his prison assignment, there was some guys picking on him. But after he got angry and wanted to yell at them, when he came back, they were dead. And he doesn't remember doing the killing. Matt Murdock believes him and thinks that maybe they can help Malvin Potter out. They are going to get him checked out by a psych doctor. Before we can explore more of Malvin Potter getting some kind of help, we see that Milla, the wife of Daredevil, is going to see a therapist. We don't know why, but we find out that someone is watching her, and the question is, who? Except we have to skip back to Malvin Potter, who is right now being escorted by a guard to his prison cell. Malvin Potter is not the only prisoner being escorted back to his cell. Except the problem is that out of nowhere, you have Malvin Potter just snap and kill both of these guys, showing that something is really wrong with Malvin Potter, and the question is now, what is wrong with him? So of course, word is getting out what Malvin Potter did to those people, but we pick up with the meeting going on with Matt Murdock and Becky Blake, meeting up with the Warren, who is saying how bad this looks. That the district attorney is looking at this as someone who truly killed someone and needs to be locked up. Except Becky Blake keeps stating that he doesn't remember snapping and killing those people. So you have Becky Blake begging the warden of the prison to consider that a shrink comes in and evaluates Malvin Potter to see that maybe he just had a mental breakdown. When Becky and Matt Murdock leave, Becky begins to wonder if maybe someone is trying to set up Malvin Potter. There are a couple pages where you have Matt Murdock swinging around Hell's Kitchen, really wondering if someone is trying to set Malvin Potter up. Also wondering if it has to do with someone trying to attack Matt Murdock's private life. So this is Daredevil getting very concerned about what is happening here. So the next day we see Malvin Potter meeting up with the shrink to see if it is true that he has some kind of mental breakdown. This scene at first seems to be that maybe she is the only hope Malvin Potter has to prove that he is technically an innocent man. But when she walks out, she states that he did not have some kind of mental breakdown, that he is lying about everything, and he knows that he did kill those men and probably did it on purpose. With her saying that, the district attorney now doesn't have anyone stopping him to give Malvin Potter 15 years in jail. You have Matt Murdock asked to give them until tomorrow so they can talk to their client about this deal. You have Gus, who was the original lawyer, wondering if it was a bad idea to come and ask Matt Murdock and Becky Blake for help. There is another set of pages that continues the idea of Milla Donovan, the wife of Matt Murdock, seeing a therapist. We don't know why just yet, but we see while she is in the waiting room, someone confronts her about it and asks a couple questions about her seeing the therapist, but not revealing why she is there for. The next page, we see her going home and hoping that Matt Murdock will be there so they can talk about her seeing a therapist. except when she gets home, of course, he is not there. Later that night, we pick up with Matt Murdock out in the city being Daredevil, and the reason why is because Malvin Potter is being transported to a different prison. So with that happening, Daredevil thinks if someone is trying to set up Malvin Potter, then that person could come out of nowhere and try to free Malvin Potter, which of course that does happen, because when Daredevil gets there to the scene of the transport, well, of course the door is blast open and Malvin Potter is free, except when he comes out, he's acting like the killer version of himself we have been seeing glimpses of here and there in this video. Now, with the explosion happening so close to Daredevil, that it throws off his hearing, because remember, Daredevil has enhanced hearing, but it gives Malvin Potter the chance to break free and actually knock out Daredevil so that he is able to escape. Now, to make things worse, in the morning when Daredevil arrives at his law firm office, well, you have Foggy Nelson there and wondering what is going on with Malvin Potter, except before he is able to explain to Foggy Nelson, you have Lucca appear, and we met her in our last video. She was a lady that Vanessa Fisk used in her master scheme to mess with Matt Murdock by having Lily smell like Karen Page, which made Matt Murdock go blind when it comes to him making certain decisions on certain things, except she is here to tell Matt Murdock that she needs his help with something. Then the last page of chapter 2 shows us that Malvin Potter has found one of his secret bases, or maybe his old home. Either way, when he enters the room, he finds his old Gladiator outfit and puts it on so that he can begin killing again. So with the third chapter, we learn why Lily needs the help of Matt Murdock, because we jump back 4 days ago where we see her at a bar, and for some reason these two guys are crazy about her. I don't mean like crazy like they just find her attractive. No, they are actually trying to fight for her like she is some kind of trophy to have, to the point where one of the guys actually kills his close friend just to have the chance with Lily, which makes everyone wonder what in the world is going on here. So that is why Lily came looking for Matt Murdock. Lily says that the same person who gave her the perfume to use to smell like Karen Page told her to come to Matt for help. Matt is down to help her, but he is not going to be the one to help her. Instead, it is going to be Dakota North taking over for Matt Murdock to figure out what is going on with Lily. Maybe she has some kind of powers she does not know about, but he is going to stay away from her because of the recent storyline he had to deal with her. Later that night, we see two random thugs are picking up Gladiator. The question is why? Except all we know that they were told to pick him up, and he showed up and they leave to go to their next mission. Moments later, we see Daredevil going to a big crime scene where that basically Gladiator was just there and killed a bunch of people. The question for Matt Murdock is why? Also, that where Gladiator attacked makes sense because it is out of Hell's Kitchen, meaning that it is somewhere out of Daredevil's usual area of parole. So to Daredevil, it means that this is Gladiator calling out to Daredevil to make a move, which of course means that Daredevil needs to hurry and find him before this gets out of hand quickly. So for Matt Murdock, he begins to think that maybe someone close to Malvin Potter could be behind this. Someone who has been keeping in contact recently with Malvin could have a hand in this mess. So that is when you have Daredevil go check up on Gus, who was the original lawyer for Malvin Potter, to see if maybe Gus had a hand on this. Except when Daredevil gets there, well, that is when Daredevil finds out that Gus has been killed. Has been dead for over an hour. So now the question is to find out who killed Gus? Except we see that Daredevil forgot he had dinner plans with his wife, so we see them having dinner. This moment is actually a tad bit important. The reason why is because Milla finds out that Lily is in town, which is something she is not happy to hear about, of course. Wants Matt Murdock to send her away. She doesn't even care if Matt Murdock is not the one working on the case. Remember that he had passed it on to Dakota North to care for it. Milla does not care and wants him to call up Dakota North and tell her no, right this moment. Except of course you have Gladiator attack where Matt and Milla were having the dinner, and this begins a big battle between the two main characters. Now remember that Malvin Potter knows that Matt Murdock is Daredevil, so it makes sense that Gladiator knows where to find Matt. Now for the character of Malvin Potter, he's showing that he is a great fighter, a strong fighter, and something that Matt Murdock will have a hard time with. So while this fight does go on for a few pages and they do go back and forth, except after a while you have Gladiator getting the upper hand and actually knocking out Matt Murdock. Now when Daredevil wakes up, well, he's in the back of a police car, except that is the moment you have someone begin to talk to Daredevil, where it seems that it is coming in through a speaker, or maybe someone talking through a psychic connection maybe. Either way, this person mentions that Gladiator could be going after someone Daredevil loves. That is when the last page shows us where Gladiator is going next, which of course the home of Matt Murdock and Milla Donovan. Of course, he is going to try to kill his wife next. Except before we are able to get more information about what's going to happen there, well, we pick up with Turk, who is this low-level thug character that has been in Daredevil comics for years, usually works for the Kingpin, except now he is working for someone else, and we see him talking to Ox. Ox is a member of the Enforcers, a group of small-time gangsters that usually do the dirty work for some crime bosses. They are talking about how they have a different boss now. Then we get another page where you have Milla figure out that she is not home alone, but learns that it is not Matt Murdock, her husband. It is actually Gladiator, who is there to kill her for some strange reason. This leads us back to Daredevil, realizing what the mysterious person meant when that person said Gladiator is going after someone Matt Murdock loves, which of course he knows that means his wife Milla. So you have Matt Murdock being able to break out of the cop car and actually attack the cop. Now this is not him attacking the cop because he is upset. He attacks the cop so that he is able to grab the keys to the cuffs and make his escape out of there. Now he knows what Gladiator is planning to do next, which could break Matt Murdock. Except when Daredevil gets to his house, of course he is too late. Now not like Milla is dead, but more of Malvin Potter has taken Milla hostage and gone somewhere else. So now you have him go to the rooftop hoping that he can hear Milla calling out his name with his enhanced hearing. That will be the only way he will be able to find out where Gladiator has taken Milla to. Now, the next set of pages, which is a lot of pages, is basically Daredevil being able to find Milla, except he finds her being hung off the edge of the building by Gladiator, and then he jumps in to save her, which then, once he is able to get her a safe distance away from the fight, you have the fight continue on. But while the fight is going on, you can see that Gladiator is fighting something fighting some kind of mind control, because he does occasionally stop fighting or tries to hold back his punches because he doesn't want to hurt Daredevil. Except after a while, you have Matt Murdock being able to knock out Gladiator, which of course is going to make his way back to prison. The last page shows us a random shop owner being excited that Malvin Potter is going to jail, except while he was trying to talk up some of his customers, those same customers actually ends up shooting the shop owner. So later on that night, we see that Malvin Potter is now being held as a prisoner who is on suicide watch. So this is them thinking that he could be a threat to his own life. Except while Matt Murdock, Foggy Nelson, and Becky Blake all leave, you have some cops upset that Daredevil was out being Daredevil. This is showing us that there are some people who still believe that Matt Murdock is Daredevil, no matter what he does to make the world believe otherwise. Either way, the cops are upset because while Matt Murdock was out trying to get himself an alibi for his whereabouts and not being Daredevil, well, there was 5 murders that Daredevil could have stopped actually. So when Foggy Nelson and Matt Murdock get back to their office, you have Matt Murdock changing into his Daredevil outfit because he feels bad about the 5 murders that happened last night. So he is going out there to do his job as a hero. While he does that, we see in the other room, Dakota North is still trying to help out Lily with what could be her new powers. Either way, you have Lily's new powers kind of working on Foggy Nelson as well, while they are getting coffee. But then we see that someone is not happy about Lily being in the office of Matt Murdock and Foggy Nelson. That person being Milla Donovan, the wife of Matt Murdock. Remember, she did not want Matt to help Lily any way possible. She told Matt to make sure that all kind of help coming from his office doesn't happen. So she screams and yells at the idea of Lily being in the office. And you have Foggy Nelson try to calm her down, but at the same time, she wants to know where her husband is at, which of course he just left out the window. Speaking of Daredevil, we see him going around beating up some low-level thugs to find out some clues that fall around Malvin Potter. With him doing that, he was able to find out the 2 thugs who were the ones that drove Gladiator to that area that was outside of Hell's Kitchen, the place where Gladiator went on a killing spree. But either way, Daredevil is able to find them and demand them to give some information before he has to beat it out of them. Getting back to Foggy Nelson, Dakota North, Lily, and also Milla Donovan, we see that Milla is still upset about 2 things: Matt Murdock not being there, and also Lily still getting help from Matt Murdock's people. So you have Foggy Nelson saying that he is going to help get Milla home, but then you have Lily for some reason offering to go with them as well, which to me doesn't make sense. If someone just yelled at me and shows that they don't want me around, why in the world would I offer to help that person get home? Getting back to Daredevil, he does find an address that leads him to a random building. Once he's inside the building, of course, the place is empty. But then we see a group of guys pop up behind him, letting us know that this is a trap to set up to capture Daredevil. This is where the story begins to switch back and forth between 2 settings. The first setting is that we see Foggy Nelson, Milla Donovan, and Lily get to the subway trying to get Milla home. Except Milla begins to get upset at Foggy Nelson because she thinks he is lying when it comes to the whereabouts of Matt Murdock. Getting back to the second setting, we see that whoever set up the trap for Daredevil, well, they begin to fight against Daredevil. Well, more of them beating down on Daredevil alive. Back at the office of Matt Murdock and Foggy Nelson, we see Dakota North and Becky Blake still working at the office, where they think they have found something really important. Somebody had made a lot of calls to Gus, but also made a lot of calls to Vanessa Fisk as well before they both had died. But then somebody had made a lot of transaction with the husband of Vanessa Fisk. Of course, the Kingpin, Wilson Fisk. That person's name is Cranston. At the same time, we jump back to our first setting, where you have an upset Milla Donovan getting mad at Lily for just being around. Just that Milla gets so upset that she tries to push Lily in front of a train that is incoming, except Lily bumps into another guy that was nearby, and he falls in front of the train, and of course we know that he's now dead thanks to the train. This leads to upset Milla because she has no idea why she wanted to do that, and that something took over her body. Then we are going to end this video with our new mysterious character holding the head of Daredevil and says that he knows about Matt Murdock's wife, and also that Daredevil knows this guy's voice, and his name is Larry Cranston, aka Mr. Fear. And this is where we are going to end today's video. So please hit that like button down below and also subscribe to the channel for more content to come in the near future. Also, any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But I do hope you enjoyed today's video. Later, guys.